The U.S., this NATO giant, is preparing to face a Russian attack. The highest-ranking soldier in the German military and an ally of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, Carsten Breuer, said he was worried that Russia would attack Germany and start a war. Defensive. In a recent interview with German media, Frankfurter Allgemeine Sonntagszeitung, the man with the official title of Inspector General of the Bundeswehr, said he was concerned about how Russia was rearming its troops at the moment. He added that Germany had to get used to the possibility that one day we may have to fight a defensive war. Breuer was also asked whether the German military would be able to deal with a Russian attack on NATO, of which Germany is a part, after the possible end of the Russo-Ukrainian war. Yes, point. We have no other choice. We can defend ourselves, and we will defend ourselves, he said, as quoted Newsweek. However, Breuer acknowledged that the German military has shortcomings in terms of national defense and alliances, after focusing on international crisis management for years. We now see that the Bundeswehr, German armed forces, is not yet equipped enough to do this, he said. There are structures in place that make quick, targeted decisions almost impossible. Breuer's statement is not without reason. In October, Russian state television propagandist Vladimir Solovyov threatened on his show that Germany would eventually come under the Russian flag, so we have no other choice. We will finish. We will take Berlin once again, and this time we will not leave, he said. Solovyov's criticism of Germany for increasing the amount of supplies sent to Ukraine. For your information, Kerman has become a strong ally of Ukraine in the ongoing war with Russia. In October, the country's defense ministry announced a new support package for Kyiv worth about $1.1 billion United States dollars for weapons, vehicles, and air defense. It turns out that Western sanctions make Putin even more profitable. Here's the proof. A series of Western sanctions have hit Russia. This was due to the country's move to attack its neighbor, Ukraine. Sanctions have prompted Western companies and their allies operating in Russia to leave the country. It is hoped that this will reduce Russia's income and the White Bear country's access to foreign goods. But in fact, the opposite is true. The New York Times reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin instead used the moment of leaving Western companies as a windfall. In the report, it was mentioned how Putin blackmailed Western companies to gain as much wealth as possible by dictating the terms of their departure. He also imposed ever-increasing taxes, generating at least $1.25 billion United States dollars. Rp. 19 trillion last year for war funds. One of the victims was Dutch beer giant Heineken. The company is understood to have found a buyer this spring and set a price. But the Russian government unilaterally rejected the deal and handed over ownership of the company in Russia to the aerosol packaging giant, who is married to a former Russian senator. In some cases, the player is the state. Government-owned enterprises have acquired the assets of giant companies such as IKEA and Toyota. But in most cases, Putin personally signed off on the sales. It's certainly a good deal for us, said Anton Pinsky, a prominent restaurateur who joined forces with pro-Putin rappers and fellow influential senators to take over Starbucks, quoted Monday, the 18th of December 2023. Today in Russia, a powerful consumer world continues to help Putin maintain normalcy even as wars have proven longer, deadlier, and more expensive. Most foreign companies remain in Russia and do not want to lose the billions of dollars they have invested there over decades. Meanwhile, the other business has been sold and now has a great feel. Krispy Kreme is now Crunchy Dream with a similar donut and familiar flavors. Starbucks has been reborn as Stars Coffee. Customers can still easily buy products that should have been pulled from the shelves. Recently, Moscow supermarkets offered Pepsi from Uzbekistan and Coca-Cola from Poland. Putin's economic counterattack has helped strengthen support among elites who profited from the war and mitigate the impact of the West's isolation, write New York Times. While Ukraine is preoccupied with short-term matters such as shoring up international support, the relative resilience of the Russian economy allows Putin to play a long-term role. Zelensky's speeches in the U.S. mentions this danger if Russia wins. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky asked the United States to continue military support to his country to face the Russian invasion. This was conveyed by Zelensky in his speech before U.S. officials at the National Defense University, Washington, on Monday, the 12th of December 2023. He said failure to help his country defeat Russia was tantamount to supporting the Kremlin's dream of destroying democracy in Europe. Zelensky said Ukraine was fighting not only for its own existence, but also to maintain the freedoms that opened up across Europe Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Zelensky also touched on the stance of Republicans in Congress who oppose U.S. funding for the Ukraine war. He said reduced U.S. aid would be welcomed by Russian President Vladimir Putin. If anyone is inspired by the unresolved issues on Capitol Hill, it is only Putin and his sick group, he said, quoted from AFP, Saturday, the 16th of December 2023. They see their dreams come true when they see delays. You can count on Ukraine, and we hope to count on you too, Zelensky said. Putin must lose. Zelensky arrived in Washington after his diplomatic safari this week in Argentina. He is scheduled to meet with President Joe Biden and congressional leaders from both parties, including Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives Mike Johnson on Tuesday, December 13, 2023. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the visit came at a critical moment and that Biden will make clear that he stands firm in its efforts to provide Ukraine with the assistance it needs to resupply its troops and expand efforts to expel Russian forces. Zelensky also met with the heads of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank in his efforts to shore up his country's economy amid a massive war. The IMF announced the disbursement of a new tranche of $900 million in long-term sustainable loans. As the war steps away, Putin reveals when Ukraine war will end. Russian President Vladimir Putin revealed when his war with Ukraine could end. He conveyed this in a public question session, Thursday evening local time. In his presentation, Putin said that Moscow promised to only end its attacks on Ukraine if its objectives were achieved, aka if Kyiv accepts a deal that achieves that. Peace will be realized when we achieve the goals you mentioned, said Putin when answering questions from the Russian media and public quoted Newsweek, Friday, the 15th of December 2023. And if you return to the goal remains unchanged. I would remind you that this means denazification, demilitarization of Ukraine, and its neutral status, he said. He stressed. This moment was the first time Putin had expressed comments from the public since launching his attack on Ukraine in February 2022. The incident also occurred less than a week after he announced he would seek re-election in March. According to the report Reuters, Putin added at the conference that if Ukraine does not want to reach an agreement to meet its demands, such as the demilitarization of Ukraine, we were forced to take other measures, including military action, he said.